You gotta be cool. Be cool, Albie. Be cool. Be cool. Stay gold, Albie. Stay gold. Crazy boy. Boy. Okay, but you gotta be cool. Alright, welcome back. We're the Book Mavens. I'm Amanda, she's Rachel, and you're joining us post Summer of Hobb as we try to deal with our book hangover.
Yes, and the hangover's been real. Coming off of a 16-book series was no easy feat. So our palate cleansers, what we decided to read before we begin our next more serious project. Yes, Amanda chose to read this.
I chose junk food.
A fluffy series. And I read one that was recommended to me by Amanda. That's right, I'm not throwing you the best.
Okay, in my defense, I hadn't read it. I just said it was on my to-read
she
list.
Did. It does. It was a book that had a beautiful cover. It was definitely one that would seduce you into reading it.
And the back, like, you know.
The back, the description was good.
I definitely judged the book by the cover and the cover description, and I'm sorry, it did you dirty.
And yeah, mine wasn't so good. But then my second read was amazing, and so I can't wait to talk about that and give a review. And
okay. I chose absolute junk food. I chose cozy.
She went fun.
Yeah, I went fun, cozy. I have been sitting on
serious.
these for a while. This is a Facebook ad that got me. And I saw them and I was like, oh, I will have to read these. And they were absolutely what I thought they were going to be. They are slightly terrible, but in the best possible way. Okay, they are the Vampire Tea House series by Erin Johnson. Okay, the titles of these books are Spelling the Tea, and I had to write it down because I was saying it wrong for nobody's surprise. Spelling the Tea with Scream and Sugar, and then I'm currently reading the third one, Score to Kettle. Get on this level. All right, picture this. It's Bath, England, home of Jane Austen.
Wow.
The Regency's
where she'd like to be.
yes, still alive and well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, enter our heroine, who is...
I didn't know they were period pieces.
No, they're not period pieces. That's what I'm saying. Like,
Rewind.
that's
Okay.
yeah. No, this is the point.
Oh, okay.
She's working at a tea house that is set to act like the Regency because it's owned by a vampire
Another layer I didn't know.
who was turned into a vampire during the Regency period, and because he misses his time, he's opened this butler tea house where it's all handsome men who, like, you know, escort you around. It's like, you know, it's one of the plot points of with the heroine that she gets very annoyed. Fitz is the name of the vampire who runs the tea house. She gets very annoyed with him because sometimes she's like, oh, chivalry, and then every once in a while she's like, oh my gosh, you know, her little feminist heart gets upset because she's like, I am perfectly capable of walking to the bathroom by myself. I do not need a male escort. Thank you very much. Get away. But like, okay, she goes to Bath, England for college and discovers she's a witch. And because she grew up in Phoenix, Arizona, where there's not enough water, her powers have never manifested because she's a water witch. Guys, this is just the tip of the delightful iceberg. And as you're reading them, they are delightfully kind of predictable, which is just what I needed. But they were also just like, they were just right. They were just right. And I have to tell you about the audiobooks. Because the first two I listened to the audiobook on Scribd, and I discovered that it's the author's sister, which I think is so great, because that had to be a heck of an undertaking for her to take on. But bless her heart, the accents are not great. The accents are not great. I'm not gonna lie to you. Our heroine is American accent, so that's fine. Every once in a while, she'll try a British accent, and like when it's Fitz from the Regency period, you know, it's very like a Jane Austen movie. And then when it's honestly anybody else, it's like this really tough Cockney accent. It doesn't. But my favorite part that I've told everybody I've talked about these books with is when the detective inspectors come. Like, these are supposed to be the British police. They always have this like really American, almost like New Jersey, New York accent. And I'm like, the first time they started talking, I was like, what? Wait, huh? But then I couldn't stop listening. They are the perfect audiobook for a car ride because you're just like, you're in it, you're engaged. It's so funny. And I thoroughly enjoyed them. I devoured them. I'll be honest with you. The 4th one's coming out this month, and I'm pretty pumped. Even the audiobook, like I'm saying, it sounds so bad because like I enjoyed that they were not great, and that sounds so bad because I know her sister had to have worked so hard, but bless her heart, those accents are not good.
Doesn't she incorporate sound effects and everything?
She does. Oh my gosh, bless her heart, she's doing the most. She does her own sound effects. Like she'll say like, "Plop, I dropped this in my cup," and I can't. And she does her own. She got an echo effect in the last book, and she was like doing this echo effect thing. And I'm just like, and you're just enjoying every minute of it, just like you do with those cheesy Hallmark Christmas movies. You know what they are. You know what's going to happen, and you still watch it. That's these books for me. It's just the right amount of ridiculous delightfulness that I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And I'm telling you, I feel the same way when I watch the Inspector Lewis series. I'm a big PBS Masterpiece Mystery fan. And I kept thinking that because Inspector Lewis all takes place in the same little town, and Oxford is supposed to be this like charming college town. Okay, the murder per capita rate is astronomical.
Really?
Because they are killing sometimes multiple people every episode. And I feel the same way about Bath. Like, people are dropping like flies around her. I would not. It's like if Angela Lansbury showed up at a dinner party, I would leave. Because like that
Bad
is,
things
you
to
are
come.
waiting for it to happen. So that was, and this is pure junk food, y'all. Pure junk food. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. And there were moments because Rachel's like, she's going to tell you about her book. She's like, I was like, oh, okay. Rachel went for substance, and I
wouldn't say it was substance, but
I went straight for the cookies and the
she has
popcorn.
been waiting because me and some students convinced her to get into this other series that she got very, very involved in. And so she had been talking about these Vampire Bakery books.
I've been sitting on
for
them
months. So finally she was able to seize the book.
This was my moment.
It was, and she took it.
It was so good.
It was a good time for it.
It was so perfect. And like I said, her 4th one drops this month, and I will be getting it.
Yeah, but they're nice and short, right? So you
they
can
are
zip through
very
them.
short. They're like they're digital, so they were like 116 digital pages. Like, they're very short, which is part of what makes them such a delight, is because they move very quickly. The pacing was nice after a 16-book trilogy. We're wrapping things up real quick in those. So that was my first one, and I'm currently in the 3rd book. So I'm counting those as one because they are so short. And I'm enjoying the journey. Right now I don't want to spoil anything, guys, but it's just read it. Just do it. You probably won't regret it if you know what it is going in. If you know what it is going in, you're here for a delightful romp.
A delightful romp.
Yeah.
Like
if you're expecting,
it's like a romantic comedy.
Yeah, if you're expecting anything other than exactly what it sounds like, this is not the book for you. But if you're just like, you just need something to listen to, like while you do a puzzle or while you're in the car. Oh yeah.
So we finished Hobb, and talking to Amanda, and I said, I really don't want to pick up a series as a palate cleanser. I really want to do a standalone. And she goes, oh wow, I have just seen this book. You put it on, what was it? Was it on your TBR?
It was on my TV Red.
Yeah.
And I actually I had it on hold at the library and everything.
And she says, look at this cover, and the cover.
It was beautiful.
Beautiful. And the description sounded really interesting. It was a kind of a fractured fairy tale or twisted tale or whatever it is that they call them. And I said, okay, well, I like those. I'm down. And it was a beautiful cover. And the book is Cinderella. I keep wanting to call it Cinderella Must Die, but that's not the correct name of the book. Cinderella Is Dead by Kaylin Bayron, I think is how you pronounce her name. And this is her debut novel. And the cover is beautiful. And I'm all for moving in a direction where fantasy in particular is becoming more inclusive. It is a young Black woman on the cover, and she's stunning, and it's amazing. And coming off of, I think, Hobb, which to me was very Eurocentric, to have a little bit more diversity. And so I was so excited to read it. And it just hit no notes for me at all. It was really a poorly written book. The pacing was terrible. Getting started, you're setting it up. It's very kind of a Disney-fied, I feel like, setting. Not a lot of descriptors, so maybe I filled in those details more, but because there was so little description, no world building. So you really just had to kind of like pull up some grim fairy tale and Disney knowledge and just kind of fill in those cracks. And so it was lacking on that front. And then for this to be kind of advertised as this kind of breakthrough Black female author, a heroine who is also color, like to put that in there and then describe her in the first 3 pages maybe of the book, and then it's never mentioned again. So I have read reviews, I have watched some BookTube reviews about this to try and get a little bit more perspective in terms of why so many people were giving it such, a fairly good review. I think a lot of people are really desperate, myself included, to read stories with more diversity that so wanted to like it. Like you just wanted to like it. And I so wanted to like this book. But the plot was lacking. The characterization was terrible. Terrible. The romance, our main character's name is Sophia. She has this girlfriend, Erin. She's also more inclusivity, little sapphic romance going on. Okay, I'm there. Okay, so she has this relationship with this girl, Erin. Not really permitted. Patriarchal. That's the word. Patriarchal society. and so it's really about these girls being oppressed, and they are forced to go to a ball in which men literally can go. It's kind of like the selection, but not. All right, to be able to just kind of go in and select a bride out of all of these young women. And that's horrible. You have no choice. And so this idea of kind of rising up and taking down the patriarchy, I'm there. I love myself a good female story. Like oh, we're going to take it all down. I wanted it so badly. Just a poorly developed villain. You really only get something with the villain at the very end. This whole idea of there being this major plot twist, you could see it coming a mile away. There wasn't anything. But even beyond that, the character of Sophia, talking about loving this girl and wanting to get her out of this society when this girl clearly is reluctant, doesn't want to do it, felt very forceful. And then she meets another girl who is an ancestor of the stepsisters from the original Cinderella myth, which this entire story revolves around the myth of Cinderella. And her name's Cassandra. And then she's like, it's like insta-love with Cassandra. And I'm like, well, what about Erin? So you must not have cared that much since you're now all about Cassandra. And this all takes place within like a week or two. And it's just, I wanted to love it, but I cannot excuse the fact that it was just a bad book. It was a bad book. Poor characterization. And coming off of something like Hobb, with the amount of time she spent developing those characters layer by layer by layer, and then to read something so empty of character development, any character development, it was like getting doused with cold water. It was not an enjoyable experience, but I dragged myself through it because I'm not a quitter. I have a hard time DNFing.
I'm 100% a quitter, and I told her several times that she should just drop it. I quit things. I quit at the drop of a hat.
I really wanted to see it through. I thought maybe it would have some kind of redeeming story at the end, but it wrapped up so neatly for the most part, and I couldn't get in it. I didn't feel anything for the characters. I didn't care what was going to happen to them. It was a wash.
Do you think that you'll try her second book, her second standalone?
I would have to have somebody that I trusted read it and give me an honest review on it, I think, before I would spend my time starting her second book. I'm just not feeling it. And I like fractured fairy tales, and I've read so many that were so much better and more well written than to waste my time on another one. I think if it's going to be written in the same vein, doesn't mean that books can't get better. They absolutely can. But as of right now, there are many books I'd put ahead over reading another one by this particular author. And I hate that because I so want to be supportive of a new author and to really love it, and I just didn't. And I want to love the story, and there wasn't enough there.
Yeah, I felt bad. I was having a great time with my little vampire cozies, and she was
in the
struggling.
corner.
She was struggling. That's why I was just like, just quit. We're having, like, we just, through a 16-book series, we deserve some.
It wasn't there for me. Not for Cinderella Is Dead, and I'm sad about it.
So I also, over our palate cleanser period that we gave ourselves, I went back and finished Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. Moss.
I think it's Mass.
I'm not 100%
sure. There's a conclusion on that. But
Sorry.
Jess Owens calls her Sarah Janet.
And we love that. So, Jess Owens, credit to you. I've been calling her Sarah Janet in my head ever since I heard you say it.
I love that.
And I'm like, yes. So I went back and finished Assassin's Blade, which is a collection of short stories. So that's what I was reading when we started the Robin Hobb project. And so I was finally able to kind of go back and wrap those up. And then I went to my to-be-read shelf. So aside from my cozies, I also read a historical fiction, which is my favorite genre, called The Girl from the Channel Islands by Jenny LaCote, or LaCotte, I'm not sure. It was such a good book. It was so well written. So my absolute favorite book, my number one favorite book, is The Guernsey Literary and Potato Peel Pie Society. I'm also, before I became an economics teacher, I was in college. I spent a lot of time in like museum studies, and early 20th century was my focus of study. So I spent a lot of time in World War II archives, and so the time period appeals to me naturally. And so I've read a lot of historical fiction based in this time period. It also tends to have these kind of cyclical resurgences. It's really popular right now, so you'll see lots of books set in that period. It's always popular, but like it's even more than it's normal right now. So I picked up this book, and if you're not familiar with the history, the part that you need to know to understand my review is that the Channel Islands, they're in the English Channel, they're British, and they were occupied during World War II. So the Germans actually occupied the Channel Islands. So the main character, Hetty, is actually an Austrian, and she's Jewish, and she had fled from Austria to the Channel Islands, trying to kind of get out of the first wave of the Nazi occupation, and then finds herself kind of trapped on this island with the Nazi occupiers. So kind of in a much more enclosed environment with them than she had intended. But what I found really beautiful about the story, first of all, I love that the author is actually from these islands, and the main characters are real people from her family history. So they're not characters to her, they're real people. It's her family. And they're written in a very realistic way. She doesn't sugarcoat the difficult decisions. It's not painted as like a hero's tale. It is ordinary people whose extraordinary act was survival. They survived, and they all had to make very difficult decisions. They had to compromise values at times. Like, she's Jewish, and because it's, eat pork or starve, that's one of the things that she has to kind of put aside. There's just a lot of, I felt just real humanity in the book, and the imagery is beautiful. The way she described the Channel Islands it's loving in a way of somebody who grew up there. Like, it feels to me the way I kind of think about my hometown, like where I grew up. It's just got this beautiful imagery of it, and I've just found myself always sinking into the story. kind of falling in it. And it's really just a survival story about how they lived their lives and how life kept moving, and life found a way, even in this incredibly impossible scenario.
Like Jurassic Park.
Yeah, life finds a way. Mm-hmm. But it's just the author, if she has other books, I would absolutely be willing to read them. It's incredibly well done. This one I highly recommend, especially if you're a historical fiction fan. I highly recommend this book. It was very, very well done. And the Channel Islands is a lesser known element of World War II history. Like, a lot of people don't realize that the Channel Islands were occupied by the Germans. And so these British subjects were under German rule, and survived it and had to rebuild their lives after. So, yeah, I highly recommend this one. This is my other palate cleanser read.
All right. Well, my second palate cleanser went much, much better than my first. Thank goodness. So, I read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, and it was probably the most dreamy book I've ever read. The atmosphere in that book, a book's unreal, right? It's like a fantasy fiction book, but it's the way it's written, you never feel quite connected to what's happening, but it's written in such a way that just kind of just wraps you up in like a cloud. It's such a weird way to say it, but the way that she illustrates with words what's happening and this whole concept of the Night Circus is incredible. I've never read anybody write in that detailed kind of way before. I found it to be a really unique voice. And I know this came out several years ago. I think it was published in 2011. So it's been around for a while. And I've always seen it on the shelf. It has a really interesting cover. And I just never really, I think, was in the right headspace to pick it up. I kind of heard mixed things about it. It's one of those books where people really seem to either love it or they just don't get it. And it's okay not to get things. I've read books that people love and I'm just like, I don't get it. But this book, the way they talk about it, like there's one scene where they're talking about this clock that was created by a clockmaker, I think in Germany, or Switzerland. Thank you. And the way the clock kind of expands itself and folds back in and creates all of these new scenes. I've never seen anything described like that. I understand why this book has been optioned as a film because of how visually stimulating it is. And I would love for somebody who had a really massively big budget to make that film to be able to really bring to life a lot of these word illustrations that she does. It's tremendously beautiful. The elements, the characters, I would say that Erin Morgenstern doesn't really flesh out her characters too much. I mean, I felt for what the two main characters are going through. The story, The Night Circus, is all focused on a contest happening between two people. One who has an innate natural ability for magic, while the other one has learned it through books, through study. And the idea of pairing the two of them up in this contest to determine who is the most talented, and that it all takes place within this kind of protected environment of the Night Circus, and creating all of these individual tents and all of these just feats of magic, and how the two of them compete within this circus atmosphere is just so incredibly stunning. It's so beautiful. And of course there's a romance and it's a competition, so there's all kinds of very interesting elements there. But the characters, the side characters, I think you fall in love with more than you do the main characters. And it's so incredibly well written. I could not recommend this book more. It's like being in a dream.
How'd you hear about this book, Rachel?
I heard about this book from one of our lovely viewers who recommended the Night Circus. So thank you so much for that one. It was a good one. It was one that I knew about it, but I never picked it up. So I appreciate the little bump over to actually do it. There was another one, Sword of Kagan. It is on my list that was recommended. I do want to read it. I do appreciate the standalone suggestions because with fantasy fiction, like she talked about, historical fiction is where she goes. That's her genre. Fantasy fiction has always been mine. So I love fantasy fiction. So we know within the fantasy community that so many great books are an incredibly long and very detailed series. So it's nice to be able to find some standalones that you can read kind of in between larger projects. Like, you know, anything like we were talking about mass, like to, you know, Summer of Hobb, or like to pick up a mass series, you know, that's a little bit more of a commitment. Although I really do, I'm feeling a Wheel of Time challenge. I think personally I would do it. I don't know if you would do it.
I don't know if I'm emotionally ready.
I just want to do it because the show's coming out and I'm one of those, I have to read it before I can watch it.
Oh, I don't. I'm absolutely...
I ruin it for myself.
Okay, I never thought of myself as like you know, just... I don't know, I feel very pop culture-y, consumer-y, like in my habits when Rachel talks about stuff, because I'm like, oh, I quit books at the drop of a hat. Life is too short for bad books, guys. Like, you can quit if you're not enjoying it.
That's what people say. I can't, it makes me feel uncomfortable. It does make me feel like a quitter. And I have stuck through some books where it was tough, but I did it. And I'm always happy that I finish. If anything, I just can't stand the idea of a book sitting here unfinished.
I will say in my life, I'm not a quitter. I really will stick with things even when I shouldn't. In real life, books is where I let myself not do it.
I quit other things, diet programs.
Yeah, I quit
exercise programs.
I quit books, but I stick with other stuff.
I don't. Yeah, it's a challenge for me. And I read primarily digitally because I have 3 small children and they are not very kind to books. That I can't stand opening up my book library on my phone. Yes, I'm a phone reader. I don't even use a tablet, right? So,
oh, I do.
Yeah, and just to see like the percentages, if it says, you know, like 27%, like I can't stand it. It has to stay finished.
You know that you can do that if you just go and swipe it.
I know, but that's cheating. I'm not going to cheat. I won't cheat.
Okay.
I'm only cheating myself, and
I think you should needlepoint that on a pillow. And you're only
also
cheating.
things I cheat. All right.
You're only cheating yourself.
I quit needlepoint projects. Cross stitch have yet to finish.
Hey, you just haven't gone back to it yet.
It's
okay.
True. It's sitting there.
It's coming.
It's to be finished.
Book Mavens, other hobbies. A different video.
It's in my TBF pile.
Ooh,
to be finished.
We're still a couple weeks out from our next project. I know we're teasing it out, but it's because we're teasing it out. It's an intentional choice. But we're a couple weeks out before we start our fall project. And this next week we're doing a game called Convince Me, where I am going to try to convince Rachel that the book I want her to read needs to jump to her next book slot over what she has in her queue. And she's going to try to convince me of the same. So join us next week as we try to convince each other to move the recommendation to the top of the list. And then we hope you'll like and subscribe. We really enjoy hearing from you in the comments. So let us know what your go-to palette cleansers are. Is there one you keep rereading? Is there a genre you fall back on? Let us know, because we definitely love your recommendations and we do use them. So we will see you next time. Bye.
I spotted you.
I wonder if
so
you
now
can
you
see
know.
all of my hairs falling off later.
I don't know. They see my peanut butter marks all over my shirt from my kid before I came here.
You know what?
We're kind of a hot mess today.
Yeah, we're real people. We live here. Jenny, we're sorry. It's called The Girl.
Alfie's getting his camera time.
Hey, I know it's been a couple weeks since you've been on, but you know how this goes. Come on, bud.
He says, "Don't grab me. I'm up here."
I'm trying to do what I want.
He is.
Yes, sit right there. Good boy.